Hi there, it's Jessica here from A Cherry on Top, and today is Technique Tuesday, and for the month of December on Technique Tuesdays we will be focusing on acrylic paints. So today I pulled out some of my favorite acrylic paints to use. These include the Dina Wakley media paints. They're like heavy body paints, so they're nice and thick, along with the creamy acrylic paints from Sizzix. Again, that's another one that's nice and thick and creamy. And then also I pulled out some liquid acrylics from Prima. These are kind of a mix of acrylic and watercolor, and I think they're really cool. You can do different things with them than just your typical acrylic paints. I am also using some collage sheets. Collage sheets are great for when you don't really feel like drawing, or if you're not a big drawer, you can use them to have a base drawing to work off of. So I'm using all of these faces, and then I'll be painting some of them in and collaging on top of it. Today I'm working in a Dina Wakley media journal. So this journal has a lot of different types of surfaces in here. There's some thick watercolor paper, mixed media paper, there's these burlap pages, and craft type paper. So I always hear how people don't know how to use the burlap surfaces, and really you use it the same way that you would use any other of the surfaces. My favorite medium for applying these collage sheets onto whatever surface I'm working on is to use Ranger's multi-matte medium. I think you can get a really flat image and it looks like it could have even been drawn on the page. I like to add the medium underneath, and then I paint it on top of the image as well, just so it's really flat against it. The paints that I'm using now are the liquid acrylics, and you see they kind of look a bit like watercolor. You can really get some cool watercolor techniques with it, but what I like is that once it dries, it becomes more like acrylic, where no matter how much water you add to it, it will not move away. So I like to add a layer, let it dry, add a layer, let it dry, and you have this layered effect using these paints. When I'm painting these faces, I like to think of how light regularly would hit the face. So I'm making it darker under the eyes and eyebrows, under the nose, around the lips, and under the chin. So that's where I'm concentrating most of my dark color, and then I am just blotting that color, making it a little bit more of a gradient to go into the lighter areas of the face. If you like to draw your own faces, I think that's super cool. This just kind of gives me a head start so I can just get going with the painting. Once my painting is done, I am cutting out the one side of the face shape. I am planning on this face to be on my burlap side, so I didn't want it to be all straight edges because I already have a couple straight edges on there, so I think cutting it out just added something nice to it. And now I'm moving on to the next page where I have all of the faces, and here I'm not planning to paint all of them, although if you did I think that'd look pretty cool too. I'm just going to paint around a few of them. And I'm using the same painting technique where the darker areas of the face I paint first, and just kind of working around where I think natural shadows of the face would be. I'm not spending a ton of time on each face. I'm going rather quickly. With the liquid acrylics, you can add more water to it, as you would with watercolors, so it's really easy to water down. And like I had mentioned, while the paint is still wet, you can still move it around. So if you add too much paint in one area and you don't like it, just get it wet and you can blot it off very easily. I will say one of the differences where if I was using this liquid acrylic on the burlap, it would really absorb a lot more than working on top of this mixed media page. So that'd just be something to consider. If you ever want to know something about a new technique or something you'd like us to focus on for Technique Tuesdays, leave it in the comments. We're always looking for new ideas. We always feel like we've done them all already, but we know there's so many different techniques and so many different things you can do with mixed media and scrapbooking, all of the things. We like to try them out. So leave it in the comments what you would like us to do next. Now I'm using some chipboard shapes. A little trick I've found with these is that you can actually split them in half. I'm doing this because I wanted a mirrored effect with this one particular leaf, but yeah, you can carefully split them apart. It is pretty fussy, but then you get two of your shape. Or also, because this is more of a book style journal, I don't like my pages to be super thick, so you could also do it like this if you don't want that thickness to your page. On the right side here, I've used leaf chipboard kind of as a stencil, but I decided I did not like that at all. It looked random and it covered up the faces differently than how I'd thought. But again, with using this acrylic, it is not permanent until it is dry. So I was able to wipe it off almost completely, and I used a little bit of the blue tint just around the rest of the page to make it look even again. I know in my art journals I work pretty freely. If I have an idea, I might as well just try it. A lot of times they don't work out, but that's another part of the art journaling process. If it doesn't work out, it's easy to fix, usually. If not, you can cover it up and try again. Now I'm using some creamy acrylics in rose gold. This has a really nice shimmer to it, and I'm also splattering around the page. So you can see here, painting on the burlap, it does work. I do have a scrap piece of paper behind the burlap page. This way nothing goes onto my page behind it, so I'd recommend doing that if you'll be doing a lot of painting on the burlap page. But yeah, paint holds on to it perfectly well. That blue transparent strip is actually a sheet of acetate that I added some alcohol inks to. I usually just have a lot of scrap papers around that I've mixed media things on, so that was just from my scrap pile. And I thought that looked like there were too many perfectly straight edges, so I'm adding this other piece with a torn edge. And now gluing on my florally leafy pieces of chipboard that I had separated in half. Now I'm using my finger to pick up some of that rose gold paint and add it just on the edges of these leaves of my florals. I'm doing this to help them stand out a little bit and to also look like they go with that goldish blob. And here's another piece from a different set of collage paper that I'm adding onto the burlap side. It says, "Art changes people, and people change the world." I thought this statement went really well with this page, one because I had this bigger face and then the few smaller faces on the right side, and using the multimedia mat to stick it down where it almost looks like it was just typed onto the page. So I think that worked out pretty well. Now I'm also adding some of the multimedia mat because, again, I thought this left side of this page had just too many straight lines. So I grabbed some thin twine and I'm just bunching it up just to add some squiggles over here. And I think that really helped it out a lot and was a good finishing touch for this piece. I will have links to all of the products that I used here today. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. And as always, thank you for watching, and we'll see you back here next week for our next Technique Tuesday.